Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on the overall DLC as it stands in the CTE so far. Now, this is sort of a preliminary review because this is sort of just the testing grounds for DLC content. It doesn't represent the final product by any means. And of course, we're only getting a limited view at what's available in it. We don't have the new Elite class that's going to be available. We haven't been able to test out the Operations game modes, which is something that I've actually been looking forward to the most. And there's a few other features that just aren't included here yet. That being said, the content we have had access to gives me a pretty good idea of what the overall DLC experience is going to be like. And I have to say, it seems like it's shaping up to be a pretty decent DLC. Being paired with some patches and some new game additions isn't going to hurt either, as those are going to make some pretty nice changes to the overall game. One of my favorite new additions is the gigantic tank, the Char 2C Behemoth. I think this just adds a whole different style of behemoth to the game that's really fun to play against and to play in. It is unfortunately really hard to maneuver around a map, especially on the Conquest game mode, but I'm actually really excited to see how the new Behemoth plays out in the Operations game mode, because having a more focused linear style battle, I think that Behemoth could really start to do some serious work, and that's where I think I'm just most excited to see how this DLC performs, is in the Operations game mode. We will be getting 2 new operations with the DLC, and hopefully also adding operations to the server browser at that time. This is something that DICE is planning on doing, adding operations to the server browser, and that will hopefully make it more playable and easier to find a server with the map, or if you have a selection of maps that you're okay with playing, just to find a game that you're actually interested in. We've gotten to see 3 of the 4 new maps in the DLC as well. The one that we haven't yet gotten access to is Verdun Heights, which actually looks visually really cool because everything's on fire and it's like on the side of a giant hill, so that could be a pretty fun map to play on, at least very visually interesting. 2 of the new maps look pretty similar to maps that we've already seen. A lot of that is just because the geography of the battles isn't very different from what some of the other maps have been on, so they might not feel as visually unique or dynamic as previous Battlefield DLCs have portrayed with their new map packs and selections. Like playing Naval Strike gave us all these really amazing, huge outdoor water environments to play on, which was really cool, and a lot of people liked it. We're getting a lot of maps that sort of seem similar to what we've already had a taste of, which can be a little bit disappointing. Some of the map design is pretty decent. I like Rupture because it's a big, wide open outdoor map, but also provides a lot of trenches and infantry cover, so the tanks and airplanes don't necessarily just dominate the whole map. On the complete polar opposite side of things, though, Soissons is another open outdoor map, and the tanks and airplanes just dominate everything because there's hardly any cover on that map. So in that regards, if you like driving a tank or flying an airplane and getting easy infantry kills, then you might enjoy that, but anybody playing an infantry probably isn't going to enjoy that one as much. Then we have Fort de Veau, which is an infantry-only map, no vehicles whatsoever, and it's got a lot of corridors and underground environments, so you don't have to worry about mortars quite as much, but the grenade spam is real, and I think it's one of those maps that really just shows how bad the grenade spam is in Battlefield 1 right now. There's just too much of it. Grenades go off too quickly after hitting the ground. There's not enough time to react and get out of harm's way, so it just turns into kind of a grenade fest. I like the map. I like a lot of things about it, but it really just does force you into a situation where you have to acknowledge that it's mostly about grenade spam. And I think many of the perceived map flaws could actually be fixed by just game balance. You know, if there's something that feels off about the map, or too clustery or too grenade spammy, it's not necessarily a map problem as much as it is just a general game balance problem. And they have made some good progress towards limiting the grenade spam, but I think they can go a bit further, as the grenade recharge rate at the moment in CTE is pretty darn fast. So at the moment, I would say the map design is kind of hit or miss, but then again, I've also not been really enjoying the way that the Conquest game mode works as of lately, so I've been playing mostly Operations, and I haven't been able to test out the maps in the Operation game mode. So they could play out completely differently depending on what vehicles are available and what routes you're going to take throughout the map. Now, the new assault tank available is a pretty cool tank. I like a lot of things about it. One of my favorite things is that one of the variations, or rather 2 of the variations, have a secondary gunner, the number 2 seat, that also faces forward on the tank. So if you and a buddy are playing in the tank and you're driving, your friend can see everything that you can see and fire at it with his machine gun. So it becomes much more teamwork oriented, as having rear gunners or side gunners often miss out on a lot of the action. And I really like the gun layout on that tank. There is, however, a problem, as one of the variations, the one that has the spotlight on it, has an incredibly good long-range cannon that not only takes out other armor very effectively, but has a lot of splash damage, allowing it to shoot infantry from really far away and get easy kills. And so on the Soissons map, I just kept dying over and over and over to these sniper assault tanks, and it's super annoying. And I hope DICE balances out that tank, reducing the splash damage and its general effectiveness against infantry. It would certainly go a long way towards making those tanks to have to actually engage rather than sitting on a mountaintop across the map just wrecking everybody from there. So definitely a little bit of vehicle balance is needed, and that's what the CTE is for: feedback, balancing things out, seeing how things work. And if DICE can get the assault tank balanced properly, then some of the maps, especially like Soissons, which looks beautiful, might be a little bit more playable if people aren't getting absolutely obliterated by some of the overpowered armor. Now, how about the new guns in this DLC? Overall, I'm pretty happy with the fact that DICE is trying to make them significantly different from what's already available in the game. That makes them more interesting and more desirable if you want a different flavor, you know, as opposed to what's already available for each class out there. They all offer something kind of unique and interesting, save maybe the sniper rifle, which really isn't that interesting overall, but those are harder to differentiate. My favorite new gun is the Sure Shot LMG, which has a huge amount of damage potential in its magazine. It's slow firing, heavy hitting, has a completely different damage model than any of the other supports machine guns out there, which is great because some of the weapon balance in Battlefield was unfortunately stale, and this is kind of spicing it up a little bit. Then the assault gets a carbine, which is actually better when aiming down sights as opposed to shooting from the hip, which is a nice change up for the assault class. The medic gets an interesting rifle that can two-shot kill at up to 44 meters away. Then there's kind of a standard shotgun, which isn't as interesting, but there is a new shotgun. And then the one really unfortunate aspect of the new weapons is the MLE 1903 Extended. Now, this is a handgun, a sidearm rather, that is exclusive to the pilot class. It may also unlock for the tanker class, but you have to unlock it as a pilot. And this, to me, is just a total waste of a new gun in the game. Because if you think about it, there's only so many pilots that can spawn on a map. If you're playing an infantry-only map, nobody will ever be using this new gun. And then when you're playing on a map that has pilots, well, those pilots are going to be in aircraft. And when they get shot down, their life expectancy isn't generally particularly great. And so the amount that this gun is actually going to get used in game is going to be totally minimal. Not to mention that the stats of it really aren't impressive anyway. So I don't see why any pilot would want to use the 1903 Extended. So I feel like this is a totally wasted gun that not only are most people not going to have the opportunity to use, but most people will just not want to use it even if they have it unlocked. So that's really disappointing, and since we're getting 6 new guns in this DLC, that's 14 more guns we have available total with the DLC. And the fact that that shitty little pistol that nobody's ever going to use counts as one of our DLC weapons is really disappointing. And I'm not a big fan of this, and I hope DICE stops making guns for the pilot and tanker class, since I feel like most of them never get used. And there's a huge variety of them, and you can tell that DICE spent some time balancing and messing with them and all that stuff and making cool reload animations for them, yet they never get used. And it seems like a major design flaw that they would just sort of overlook the fact that they spent so much dev time on weapons that are hardly ever getting touched. So my only hope is that going forward, DICE spends less time making sidearms that are exclusive to tanker or pilot classes, and maybe more time developing, say, an alternate cavalry class that has different weapons available to it. That would be kind of cool. At first I thought that the 1903 might be a cavalry exclusive weapon, and that would have been kind of interesting. So going forward, please DICE, no more tanker or pilot weapons. Design them for other classes out there so that we can actually make use of them. Now, given that I haven't been able to test out all of the DLC content, only what's been available in CTE, I would still say that so far this seems like it's going to represent a decent amount of content. I like overall the new weapon design and weapon balance. The maps are decent, although not quite as exciting as you might expect from other Battlefield DLCs, simply because a lot of the geographic locations are very similar to what we've already experienced in the vanilla game. The new Behemoth is totally badass, probably one of my favorites so far added to the game, and the new weapons, at least for a decent amount of the classes, offer something really different and interesting compared to what's already available. Still, I think I'm most looking forward to the new Operations game modes, as that is my favorite game mode by far in Battlefield 1, and getting 2 brand new ones is something that I just cannot wait for. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for my pre-review of the Battlefield 1 They Shall Not Pass DLC. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it gives you a good idea about what to expect with future Battlefield 1 DLC. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.